Well, look at this beautiful room. Doesn't it look good in here, everybody? I think it looks great. And I'm including you all, too. Beautiful people make the room pretty, too, right? Good morning, and thanks for being here with us today. And welcome to the 48th David L. Underwood Lecture. I'm LaRonda Wilson, the 46th Underwood recipient. We thank you for being here and tuning in to the STLCC YouTube live stream if you're joining us there. This event is the jewel that kicks off our academic year, where we celebrate the legacy of Dean Underwood, recognize the hard work of colleagues, and get inspiration to motivate our students as we enter into a new term. Today, the woman of the hour to motivate us is Dr. Rokhaya Ndao, affectionately known as Dr. Daba. Dr. Daba has joined a group of elite academicians of Underwood recipients. Will all of you present here today please stand so that we can acknowledge you? And we're feeling the energy of the Underwood recipients who are watching on live stream. Thank you for tuning in. It's noteworthy to mention that recipients of the Underwood Memorial Lecture Award are selected by a committee of peers who exhibit excellence in instruction and a genuine humanistic concern for students, faculty, staff, and all of education. To include other key characteristics of Dean Underwood: his love of education, concern for the welfare of students and staff, and devoting time and talents to further the educational mission here at Flo Valley. A hearty thank you for all that you've done and still do, many of whom are retired and still serving on this campus and community. I'm looking at Sharon because her husband just told me, believe it or not, she's retired. I said, I know, right? I'd like to ask all of our leadership present to please stand and be acknowledged. Oh, I see you, Dr. Lanier. Don't act coy. Thank you for being here. We appreciate each of you. A special shout out to our leadership here at this campus: Dean Janice Nesser-Chu, Dean Tom McGovern, and our campus president, Dr. Elizabeth Perkins. At this time, if we have any elected officials, including our Board of Trustees, will you please stand? All right, well, we thank you for tuning in live stream. We want to give a special thanks to the Underwood family. Each year, Mrs. Underwood and their daughter, Kathy, have been supportive and kind to our campus community, each of our recipients, in helping to prepare lectures, showing up for the reveal, sending notes of encouragement and appreciation. We love you, and we are so proud that you and your family join us in this illustrious celebration of Dean Underwood. They are joining us virtually today, but we can certainly feel their loving energy from the live stream in this space. A bit about Dean Underwood: he was born in Ava, Illinois, and moved to St. Louis in 1926. After 2 years in the Navy, he enrolled at Central Missouri State University, where he earned his undergraduate degree, and the University of Missouri, where he earned his master's in English. He taught English in the St. Louis Public School District a bit over a decade, and eventually landed here at Florissant Valley in 1963, where he served as chair of the Humanities and Communications Division, and later became the Associate Dean of Instruction. Now, before I leave this podium, I need to thank some folks and give you this very important announcement. Lunch is served in this room immediately following our lecture. This event is made possible by some amazing and outstanding talent on this campus. I must first acknowledge the Underwood Lecture Award Committee. Dr. Howard Rosenthal, our 47th Underwood recipient. I just saw him walk in, I think. Sharon North, our 45th Underwood recipient, who you'll hear from in a little bit, and yours truly. A very special thank you to Marie McCool, our theater manager, Brian Williamson, who we call T, our theater technician director, and Aaron Linder, our media specialist, Shatana Stewart, our campus marketing and communications coordinator, Karen Wade, our library secretary, Stephanie Grice, our administrative assistant to the campus president, Saria Miller, a math and science secretary. Last, and with a lot of enthusiasm, I want to thank and introduce Dr. Paul Higdon, our 40th Underwood recipient, my department chair, friend, and colleague, who is going to send our souls into a wondrous place before we hear from Dr. Daba. He's going to perform Tempest. The third movement. It's a piano sonata, number 17, Opus 31, number 2, by Ludwig van Beethoven. Thanks.
Bravo, Paul. That was exquisite. Thank you so much. It was lovely. Welcome, everyone, to today's celebration. It is my honor and privilege to introduce with great pride our speaker. Rokhaya Ndao, also known as Daba, is a professor of mathematics at St. Louis Community College, Florissant Valley campus. She has taught all math courses from pre-algebra to differential equations and began working at STLCC after receiving her Ph.D. in applied mathematics from the University of Missouri, St. Louis, under the supervision of the illustrious Professor Charles Chewy, Curators Professor Emeritus at the University of Missouri, and Distinguished Professor Emeritus of Texas A&M University. Before that, she obtained a 2-year degree in applied mathematics and computer science from University Gaston Berger de Saint-Louis, Senegal, a bachelor's in computational mathematics and a Master of Arts in mathematics from the University of Missouri, St. Louis. Dr. Ndao has taught mathematics at STLCC for 16 years and has mentored many students, acting as their guide through the extraordinary world of mathematics. She is currently serving as the chair of the mathematics department, a huge job, and has served the college in various important committees. She co-founded our Flow Valley Math Club, the Math Magicians, and co-sponsored our college's first ever team to the Mathematical Association of America mathematics competition. She has trained, mentored, and cheered Florissant Valley students to the Missouri collegiate competitions, where they beat some of the best universities in Missouri. Dr. Ndao has contributed to the work of the Developmental Education Redesign Team and the Math Pathways Team in efforts to redesign our mathematics curricula. Dr. Ndao is certified in backwards design from D. Fink and Associates. D. Fink is a national leader in designing courses for significant learning. Dr. Ndao has developed projects for pre-algebra through calculus, some of them infused globally to enhance the students' learning experiences. She has presented this work at various conferences. Professor Ndao was selected to represent the math department in a National Science Foundation grant to flip her differential equations course. The flipped classroom model is a well-known evidence-based educational approach for student-centered learning. In the flipped classroom, students receive instructional content before class using the extensive collection of videos Professor Ndao has created, and then use class time to engage in meaningful assignments and group discussions. She continues to find innovative ways to make mathematics highly accessible to all dedicated students. Dr. Ndao is also a contributing author for the OpenStax co-requisite to college algebra text. This open and free, high-quality educational resource provides support to all students, regardless of their ability to pay. Daba comes from a family of educators in Senegal, where she was born. Her mother, who is with us today, has been an English professor for over 30 years. And her uncle is a law professor and consultant for the United Nations Organization and the European Union. As outstanding teachers, they both benefited from the Fulbright Exchange Program. Very early, she admired their dedication to teaching and to their students, and that is why she chose to be a teacher, to make contributions to the community as a trainer, a mentor, a role model. Infusing culture into the learning process is to educate students and dispel some misconceptions about Africa and Africans. She grows every topic she teaches and learns from those she teaches. Professor Ndao has an amazing, intelligent, caring professor with high standards who goes way above and beyond what is required. And this professor ever continues to mentor her students way beyond their tenure at St. Louis Community College. She cares about the success in mathematics, St. Louis Community College, engineering, and transfer science students, the ability to compete on a national level and succeed in completing these highly challenging degrees. To teach. I do it daily as a mother, a sister, a wife, and as well in my profession. My teaching is not up because it defines me as a teacher. I teach because that is what I do. It is who I am. Professor Ndao enjoys sharing her Senegalese culture in St. Louis, Missouri, as a member of the St. Louis, Senegal, St. Louis, Missouri Sister City Program. As the former Secretary General of the Senegalese Association in St. Louis, and as a member of the Senegalese community in St. Louis. So I am so proud today to ask you to join me in welcoming today's speaker, Professor Daba Ndao, the 48th recipient of the David L. Underwood Lecture Award.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good morning, Florissant Valley. Dear members of the Underwood family, previous Underwood awardees, members of the Board of Directors, Chancellor, Presidents, Deans, faculty, and staff, those joining us online, I welcome you all and thank you for gracing me with your presence today. Thank you, Paul, for that wonderful piece of music. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon and LaRonda, for this wonderful introduction. Okay. Oops, I forgot that. St. Louis times 2. There is a reason for that. We'll get to that soon. A celebration of culture, women, and mathematics in Sub-Saharan Africa. First, let's do greetings. In Senegal, greeting is very important. It's a sign of respect. So this is how we greet. First, I'm going to say, may peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum. Then you say, may peace be upon you too. Wa alaikum salam. You want to try? Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Then you say in Wolof, which is our native language, Nanga def means how are you? Then you say back, I am still here. Which means mangi fi rek. Ma ngi fi rek. Okay, let's start from the top. Assalamu alaikum. Nanga def? Great. I'm excited. Okay. Well, as a tradition, you have to say how you became the Underwood Award. It was a Wednesday morning. It had rained the day before, so I had a nasty sinus headache on my left brain. It felt like a woodpecker had taken residence in my left brain. Sharon had told me 2 days ago that a student wanted to appeal their grade. It felt weird that a student would wait until mid-semester to appeal their grade. But Sharon had been department chair way longer than I was, so she must have had good reasons to bring up the appeal at that time. So she came, put a folder on my desk, and asked me to read the documents related to the appeal. I opened the folder, and the first thing I see is, Dear Underwood Committee. I felt confused. My heart stopped for a second. Then I continue reading. It says, I would like to nominate. I stopped right there, closed the folder, and told her, thanks, but no thank you. In my mind, Sharon wanted to nominate me for the Underwood Award and was asking permission. I felt relieved that I was not the awardee, and by the way, the sinus headache just disappeared. Sharon insisted that I read the rest of the document, which I skimmed through and went on to check on my computer when the Underwood winner would be announced. Then Sharon told me that there was a card that I should read inside the folder. Crazy me opened the card backward and saw, congratulations, you are the 48th Underwood recipient. I started saying an infinite sequence of no's, rolling away from my desk. The woodpecker came back with a vengeance. My heart was racing. I was sweating. I must have looked crazy because Sharon's eyes were getting bigger and bigger. I was rolling away from the desk. Eventually, I calmed down, and Sharon really convinced me that I deserved it. I felt like I was in a daze for days afterwards and dreaming of Professor Underwood every night with that pipe. I told only my husband and kids and my parents. They were all very happy and proud. My mom said, well, you are number 48, but you are the first Senegalese to win the award. She's very competitive. All right. I was born some 1.83 times 10 to the power 4 days ago. I can see the math folks trying to figure out in years. In Dakar, Senegal, I am the eldest of the 5 children of Mamaryan and Nafissatou Mbodj. My father is a retired civil engineer who was born in the city of Saint Louis, Senegal, and my mom is a retired English professor who was born in Dagana, a department in Saint Louis, Senegal. Mom, you want to say hi so people can see you? Thank you. After, oops, I skipped a bit. They are both grandchildren of the last king of Genjol and the last king of Walu. On the left side is my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, who was a judge, and on the right side is my maternal grandfather, who was a traditional chief. And they were both sons of the last king of Walu and the last king of Genjol. After preschool, private Catholic elementary school, and public school from Lycée Thierno Seydou Nourou Tall, I attended the former Université d'Excellence Gaston Berger de Saint-Louis, now Université de Saint-Louis. In my second year at the university, my mom was awarded a Fulbright scholarship to be an exchange teacher in St. Louis, Missouri at Soldan International High School. Halfway through my bachelor year at the University of St. Louis, Senegal, I came to St. Louis, Missouri to continue my studies. I remember to this day what my dad told me the night we were leaving St. Louis, Senegal, to go back to Dakar and get ready for my travels. He said, "You are going to a new country. Never forget who you are and where you're coming from. Life is going to be hard without parents or relatives close to you. You'll be confronted to difficult situations and people. Never lose your self-respect, your dignity and honor when dealing with those issues and people. Be always humble, compassionate, and dignified. Remember, nobody defines you. You define yourself." That same speech my grandfather said to my mother when he went to Mecca for the pilgrimage to never come back. That same speech we gave to our son when he went to Iowa State in 2020. You want to stand up? That's my first favorite son. Happy. My second favorite son will be going to the University of Iowa soon. You want to stand up? And we'll have the same speech. Well, since he heard it today, maybe we don't have to, do we? I arrived in St. Louis on Christmas night. I thought I would never get to St. Louis. At the O'Hare Airport in Chicago, I got lost and couldn't find my gate. I saw a lady wearing a Mrs. Claus suit and asked her if she could help me get to my connecting flight. I told her I was going to St. Louis, Missouri, with the French pronunciation. She told me, "Honey, there is no such city in the USA." I replied, "Of course. There is one. My mother is there waiting for me." Then I showed her my ticket. She said with a smile, "Ah, St. Louis, Missouri." Okay. Then she took me to my gate and wished me Merry Christmas. With a 2-year degree and 1 semester of the last year of bachelor, there was a dilemma regarding my placement. My courses were master's level, but I was not holding a bachelor's degree. In Senegal, when you attend university, you just focus on your course or your core courses. General education is satisfied the last year of high school. I had finished all my core requirements for the bachelor in mathematics and had even finished my first year of master's level courses. I then took some African American music course, technical writing course, and some other courses at Forest Park, Harry Stowe State College, and the University of Missouri. I was awarded a bachelor's in computational mathematics and started my master's in mathematics. I taught at USL as a graduate teaching assistant, math lab supervisor, and adjunct professor for 8 years. In 2006, I obtained my Ph.D. in applied mathematics, and in 2007, I was hired here at STLCC and have enjoyed these 16 years with faculty, staff, and students. This is my first full-time job, and I want it to be my last full-time job. I must thank Dr. Sally Ibes at UMSL. She was the supervisor of all the graduate teaching assistants, who suggested that if I applied at STLCC, if I wanted to make a difference in somebody's life. St. Louis is a part of my fate or destiny. My father was born in the city of St. Louis, Senegal. My mother was born in the region of St. Louis, Senegal. I went to school in both St. Louis cities. I met my husband in St. Louis, Missouri. Husband, you wanna stand up? The story about how we met and started dating each other is another lecture itself. and you will do it. He was born in the city of St. Louis, Senegal. Went to school in both St. Louis cities, Prytanée Militaire de St. Louis and St. Louis University. And my 2 sons were born in St. Louis, Missouri. I was very anxious about this lecture when I was told I was the 48th Underwood recipient. By the way, did you know that 48 is not a happy number? Professor Chibday in the math department instructed me about happy numbers last semester. A happy number is a number who eventually reaches 1 when replaced by the sum of the square of each digit. For example, 49 will be a happy number. 49 Underwood OOD will, have the happy number. Why 49 is a happy number? Well, you take 4, you square it, add it to the square of 9, you get 97. So you take 9, you square it, add it to the square of 7, you get 130. You keep on doing it. Square 1, add it to the square of 3, add it to the square of 0, you get 10. And finally, you square 1, square 0, you get 1. Happy number. Well, mine goes in a loop that never stops. Well, 48 is sad, but I don't really care. But for the Luba people in the Congo, 48 is part of numbers of peace. So 48 is peaceful. The Underwood Committee advised me to talk about what I'm passionate about. Since I'm passionate about sharing my culture and mathematics, I will first talk about some aspect of my Senegalese culture and Senegalese women, and then share some facts about mathematics and architecture in Sub-Saharan Africa. First, let's talk about St. Louis times 2. In 2003, Dr. John Wright, right here, he's a former board member of STLCC. Dr. John Wright obtained a grant from Sister Cities International. That grant allowed students from Ahmed Fall High School in St. Louis, Senegal, to exchange and collaborate with students from Berkeley High School. The students found that the two cities had more in common than just a name. They shared their knowledge through the book, More in Common Than Just a Name. So let me share some of those similarities with you. St. Louis, Missouri, gateway to the west and former capital of the Upper Louisiana Territory, was founded in 1764 and named after King Louis IX of France. The flowering dogwood tree is the symbol of the state, and the East Bridge over the Mississippi River connects St. Louis to East St. Louis. St. Louis, Senegal is gateway to West Africa and former capital of French West Africa. It was founded in 1659 and named after King Louis XII. The baobab tree is the symbol of the state, and the Faidherbe Bridge over the Senegal River links the island of the city of St. Louis to the mainland. They share similar stories. St. Louis, Missouri was involved in slave trade, and several of its early inhabitants were descendants of French settlers and African that became known as the colored aristocracy. St. Louis, Senegal was involved in slave trade, and a number of its early inhabitants were descendants of French settlers and Africans that became known as les Signards. The first air-mail letter in the US was out of St. Louis, Missouri. The first air-mail letter across the southern Atlantic Ocean was out of St. Louis, Senegal. Henry Armstrong, the first prize fighter to hold 3 titles, was from St. Louis, Missouri. Marik Fall, the first African heavyweight boxing champion, was from St. Louis, Senegal. Both cities had one of the worst floods in their history. In St. Louis, Missouri, it was in 1993, and in St. Louis, Senegal, it was in 1995. And I was at the University of St. Louis, Senegal at that time, and my father was the lead engineer during that tragic flood. They both have 2 universities named St. Louis University and Université de St. Louis, and they both have an old cathedral. You can visit downtown by using a horse carriage. They're different, but. And then you can keep the tradition alive with the Mardi Gras in St. Louis, Missouri, and the Fanal in St. Louis, Senegal. They both have annual jazz festivals, and the one in Senegal is Africa's largest annual jazz festival. And finally, they're both great tourist destinations. Forest Park is one of the largest urban parks in the US, and you have the wonderful zoo. And in Senegal, you have the Parc de Juge, the 3rd largest bird sanctuary in the world. And what they share in common is teranga. Teranga Senegal is known as the land of Teranga. Travel guides often define this wall of word as meaning hospitality. But that's a loose way of translating it, said Pierre Cham, the Senegalese chef and co-founder of Teranga Restaurant in New York City. It's much more complex than that. It is a way of life. It is a value. Indeed, Teranga encompasses hospitality, respect, honor, service, and community. Senegalese believe that if you take your time and energy to come and visit them, then they have the duty of making you feel like a king in their house. Youssou N'Dour, Dr. Paul Higdon knows Youssou N'Dour. He's a Senegalese international Grammy winner, says in his song Ndargej, someone who comes to your country, when they arrive, welcome them, honor them so much that when they leave, they will want to return. Saint Louis, Senegal represents the epitome of Teranga. Teranga is visible through greetings, and especially through food. When Senegalese women prepare a meal, they always cook for 1 or 2 extra persons. Indeed, people can just show up at lunchtime, and it is a duty to make that person feel welcomed. People gather around a communal bowl, and if someone comes late, they make a place for that person and add more food. Pierre Cham says, there is always room for the other around your bowl because we believe that the other is bringing blessings. When you share your bowl will be always plentiful. This is a deep-rooted Senegalese belief that there is always more. You never lack by sharing. This is a country that values the wealth of a person by not how much he has, but by how much he shares and by how much he gives. Because of that Teranga, Muslim and Catholic live in perfect harmony. When Catholics break their fast, they cook a special meal and share it with their Muslim neighbors and friends. That sharing is reciprocated by Muslims when they break their fast and celebrate Eid al-Huda. Neighbors are very important in Senegal. They say, the neighbor is closer to you than your extended family. If something happens to you or your house, the neighbor will be the first to help. Because of that Teranga, all the ethnic group, and we have at least 8 of them, live in harmony. But also, the Senegalese believe that Senegal benn bopp la, ken munu ko xar ñaar, meaning Senegal is one head, nobody can split it in half. Indeed, we may disagree and fight, but at the end of the day, we are in the same boat, Sunugal. Sunugal was the previous name of Senegal. Sunugal is our boat. At the end of the day, we may be cousins, or cousin of a cousin, or our families have ties that are older than our birth. Indeed, there were a lot of marriages between the different ethnic groups. Therefore, we are all related. So greeting somebody, treating somebody with respect, helping someone in need of any help without being asked, offering and sharing what you have, treating the stranger like family, respecting other people's choice, celebrating someone's religion is Teranga. So it is a way of life. Anthony Bourdain said, some places surprise you. Even if you have been traveling nonstop for 15 years like me, there are places that snap you out of your comfortable worldview, take your assumptions and your prejudices, and turn them upside down. They lead you to believe that maybe there is hope in the world. Senegal is one of those places. That same Teranga I experienced when I arrived in St. Louis, Missouri. I was adopted by the Maupin family. They made me feel like I was coming back home after a long trip abroad. Stephanie Maupin is a former Fulbright exchange teacher in Dakar, Senegal, and my mother's mentor when she came to St. Louis as a Fulbright exchange teacher. Stephanie watched over me like a true Senegalese mother from the day I came to St. Louis till like today. She made sure I always kept and lived the Senegalese values that were instilled in me. Dr. John Wright, former Ferguson superintendent and former STLCC board member, president of the St. Louis, Senegal, St. Louis, Missouri sister city, and his late wife, Sylvia Wright, opened their home to us and were always eager to include us in their family affairs. I always regarded Sylvia as my maternal grandmother. Mom Ellen and Papa Lawrence Harris are my husband's family when he first came to St. Louis. They are our adopted parents. They were there when I needed them. Mom Ellen had taught me a lot about St. Louis, Missouri, and mostly about being a teacher. She was an elementary school teacher, and I learned from her to contextualize my lessons and keep my students interested in math. Mrs. Judy Kobias and Steve Kobias, former art teacher at Solon High School, former principal in the Lindbergh School District, were the boys' babysitters when I first studied here at STLCC. Miss Rosaline Scott, Miss Rosaline is right here. She's a former middle school teacher, has been another mother figure for me. We have spent so many Thanksgiving at her house with her son William and her daughter Harriet, who was a professor at Forest Park. The late Miss Pearlie Evans, civil rights activist, Miss Betty Jean Kerr, CEO of People's Health Clinics, who were role models for me and were always encouraging me to reach higher. STLCC Math Department colleagues, former and new presidents, deans, colleagues welcomed me like I was always supposed to be here at STLCC. That is Teranga. And in fact, the first day I started here at STLCC, my apartment got robbed. And I was here by myself with the two boys. My husband was in medical school. And Sharon insisted that I come and stay at her house. That is Teranga. Thank you. I take this opportunity to say to all of you, Jerojef. Jerojef means thank you. That same Teranga I bring to my classroom. Indeed, I want my students to feel that they can ask any questions and express any concerns with civility and respect. I want them to know that I care about their success and about them as human beings. If I see a student being shy, I do my best to get them out of their cocoon and assure them that they belong in the classroom. I encourage them to do honors projects or research careers that are STEM related. I can proudly say that I was part of the village that supported one of my students to earn a doctorate in computer science after earning a master's in mathematics under the supervision of my former advisor at UMSL, Dr. Alicia Boyd, who surprised me today by showing up. All right, enough of me. Let's dive now into the Senegalese culture, women, and values. I'm going to start now with a story, actually a dramatic event that happened on March 7, 1820. That story shows that in Senegal, honor, dignity, self-esteem, and freedom do not abdicate. There, situated in the Kingdom of Walo in the northern region of Saint Louis, was a small village chosen by the ruling king of that time to be the capital of his kingdom. The French colonizers signed a treaty with the Walo Kingdom on May 8, 1819. This treaty, called the Treaty of Ndao, allowed the French to build fortresses to protect Walo and to bring new seeds for a new kind of crop. This was going to make the Walo more prosperous. That did not please the neighbors. The Moors in Mauritania, living on the opposite bank of the Senegalese River, and the Tukulers in Fouta, another kingdom just to the east of Walo, on the same bank of the river. These neighbors were afraid to be attacked by the coalition between the French and Walo, and overall feared for their economy based on gum and slave trade. The Moor attacked Walo on September 21, 1819, when the king and his court were having a meeting. They killed many and injured the king. The second attack was the one on March 7, 1820. While the king and his followers were in Saint Louis to be cured of their injuries, that day all the men of the village went to the field to work. The queen Fatima Marhouriaimouch, her court, women, children, and sentinels were in the village. The sentinels saw a big troop of warriors rushing towards the village. They hurried to inform the queen. Rapidly, the queen called her lady companion, Linger Mbarkaja, who advised all the women to wear the clothes of the warriors, put turbans around their heads, take the arms, and fight against the enemy. When the invaders entered the village, the women fought fiercely and chased them away. The women were so happy that some of them took off their turbans, revealing their femininity. Vain woman. Then the enemies, noticing that they have been beaten by women, were ashamed, hurt in their male ego, and furious. They turned back and attacked again. The queen called her advisor. Since they had no more munition left, nor strength to fight, She advised that all of the women of the court should with dignity, pride, and courage enter the big hut and set it in fire. The queen said, "Women of Ndao, worthy daughters of Wallo, straighten up, retire your loincloth, get ready to die." A proverb says, when it's time to die, anybody who stays alive is not noble, not a worthy person. So it is time to die with dignity. All of them entered the big hut. The queen and her advisor were the last to enter, making sure that nobody in her court was left outside except a pregnant lady companion. They charged her to take the two very young princesses to their paternal aunt in a nearby kingdom to hide. That lady was crying and saying that she had the most unhonorable role in the tragedy. But she had to retell what happened that day as a witness and had to save the princesses in order to continue the family ruling lineage. The ruling system was a dual system. The queen had her own functions independent of the king. The queen, her court, and the women of Ndao died singing to show their bravery. They did not allow the enemy to abuse them or sell them as slaves. That is Talata Ndao, the famous and historic Tuesday of Ndao. Tuesday, March 7, 1820, Senegal anticipated by setting itself a pioneer in the 19th century by recognizing the values of the woman. Today, the international community has chosen to celebrate March 8 for women, but in Senegal we celebrate March 7, the famous suicide of the woman of Ndao. The daughters of the queen, Princess Njambet and Date, have reigned and defended their kingdom from the French and protected their people. Queen Dateyala, the younger sister, was the head of state, a general of her army, and above all, a tracer of destiny within the framework of a conscious and voluntary progressive democracy. Those proud women are my mother's ancestors. Indeed, the sister of the Queen Mother, Aïssa Daro, is the mother of the last king of Wallo. That king was elected with the influence of her cousin, Dateyala, daughter of the departed queen. In fact, she was the one who ruled the kingdom of Wallo. There are other women like that in Senegal. Queen Yassine Boubou in the kingdom of Jolof, who ruled and fiercely resisted against French colonization. Many people unfamiliar with Africa think that women in developing countries have little control over their lives. Before the colonial government, like France, imposed their systems of government on the regions of Africa, powerful rulers controlled the land and the people. In these kingdoms, the queens played important roles as advisors of the king and decision makers. The mother queen and the sister in particular had to take all the decisions that the king was going to ratify. For example, Natayala in the north of Senegal in 1800s. Along with the duty of ruling the region, she stood up to the French colonizers to protect her people and their rights. She forbade the French people to sail on the Senegalese river unless they paid a lot of money. The village chiefs, before taking a decision, used to say, I'm going to talk with my pillow first. Pillow means my wife. Husbands always consulted with their wives before taking any decisions and valued their opinions. Those women wanted to give honor, respect, and put their husbands at the forefront. In fact, they were in the background in influencing decisions made by them. The women are responsible for the upbringing of the children, especially the girls. An African proverb says, when you educate a girl, you educate a whole society. Indeed, in Senegal, the woman is considered the pillar of the society. The woman and the whole community participate in teaching social values to children at very early age. They teach by example most of the time, but also by citing proverbs. Jam, teggin, ngor, sutura, woyof, fulla ak fayda, just to cite a few, are very important values that are taught to kids. Jam means honor. One must avoid shame. One must refuse facility or dependence. Professor Hassan Silla, author of La Philosophie Morale des Wolof, says, self-control, probity, perfect socialization, refinement of behavior and language, honor, these are the fundamental principles that govern the life of the Wolof. From the cradle to the grave, the conscience of the individual is nourished and made by this morality of honor. Jam is so important that if you don't have jam, then you don't have anything. For the Wolof, the success of an individual has a strong relationship with his jam. I remember when I was a kid, if somebody told you you have no jam, you would like cry or not eat for a week. I mean, it was like an affront to your honor. I've told my kid, the youngest one, maybe once or twice. Tegin means politeness and courtesy. One must respect and adhere to the protocols of interpersonal communication. Greetings, thanking, asking for permission, avoiding vulgarity and choking attitudes, listening and empathy are also part of Tegin. Tegin is one of the virtues that are taught to children so that they become adults who possess refined attitudes and language. Ngor means nobility of character. One who possesses Ngor is called a Gor. A Gor is honest, incapable of succumbing to the temptation of money and materials. A Gor accomplishes his responsibilities no matter what. Serigne Abdul Ahad Mbake, great spiritual leader of the Murid, said, "If someone's yesterday promises match today's action, you have a Gor in front of you." Sutura means discretion. A proverb says, "Where peace reigns, there is someone who has kept quiet about what he knows." Someone who has sutura knows how to manage silence because he understands all the weight of words and their destructive or creative capacity. Woyof means modesty, humility, and simplicity. One must be without artifice, must say what he thinks and be sincere. One has consciousness of their limitations and does not need to impress or enlarge their ego. Last but not least, fulla ak faida means dignity. Fulla can be understood as character's firmness. Faida is an extension to fulla by adding some determination. Self-assurance or self-esteem is also a virtue, is also included in the virtue of fulla ak faida. All the virtues work in tandem to create a system of checks and balances. Indeed, you may have a high self-esteem, faida, but you must be humble, woyof. You must be truthful, njub, but you cannot say a truth that could destroy family ties. Even with her job outside of the home, the Senegalese woman believes her most important and influential job is the rearing of her children. The mother leads the child down the path of life. She assumes the responsibility for both the failures and the successes of the children, and in doing so, she is responsible for the decline or the improvement of the whole Senegalese society. Being the central figure of the family, she is respected, loved by the children who don't want to shame her by misbehaving. Who is interested in Senegal and women? Okay. Senegal is 96% Muslim, 3% Roman Catholic, and 1% animist. The values that Islam teaches are the same values that the Senegalese culture believes in: respect, humility, compassion, dignity, and generosity. Senegal Islam is very tolerant and respectful of others' beliefs and customs. The changes that Islam brought to the Senegalese culture are mostly the introduction of alcohol drinking and the limitation of the number of wives to 4. The Quran is very clear about polygamy. Monogamy is a rule in Islam. The Quran says you can marry 1, 2, 3, or 4 women. If you cannot morally, financially, and physically be equitable, then only marry 1. But of course, most people only read the first sentence and leave out the second. When Islam first came to Senegal, men were the majority who learned the Quran, the laws, and sometimes translated them to their advantage. Nowadays, women are learning the Quran, learning the laws, and teaching them to other women. In Senegal, there are tarihas: Murid, Tijan, Layen, Nyasen. The religious leaders are very powerful and participate in government decisions. Their daughters were very early instructed in Islamic studies and have in Senegal a lot of schools dedicated to teaching Islam to children and particularly girls. I have two examples here. The first one is Mam Jara Bousso. She is the mother of the spiritual leader of the Mourids, Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba. She is a very famous spiritual leader in Senegal, in West Africa, and in New York too. She was a great Islamic scholar, renowned for her expertise in advanced Maliki texts, and is reported to have personally overseen the Quran memorization of over 50 students while she was still a young unmarried woman. To this day, an annual pilgrimage is performed at her grave, and that is the only event dedicated to a female saint in Senegal and perhaps in Africa as a whole. Her granddaughters memorized the Quran at a very early age and followed on the path of their father and grandmother by being scholars and businesswomen. For instance, Sokhna Musli, born in 1918, was well known for her agricultural activities and was one of the most successful farmers in Senegal. Between 1962 and 1963, her farm produced 30 tons of groundnuts. She was also in the textile industry and signed a contract with the Senegalese government to supply the National Army and the Senegalese delegations to the Hajj with the millet couscous that she produced. She dedicated her wealth, her life, to teach Islamic knowledge, especially to women. She built Mary Quranic and Islamic schools for women, and because of her contribution to the development of the agriculture and business sectors of Senegal, she was the first Senegalese woman to be awarded the Order of Merit, a national honorary award to the most distinguished citizen in recognition of services rendered to the nation. The second woman is the daughter of Sheikh Ahmed Khalifa Niass. Sheikh Ahmed Khalifa Niass is the most known Sufi leader in West Africa. He said, "Women are something great and magnificent in the sight of God, so we should not neglect our female children. We should respect them, because girls will grow up to become women who raise and train mankind tomorrow." He was the leader of the Niassène, and like Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, instilled similar values in his daughters. They all memorized the Quran and mastered the Islamic science while being great businesswomen and teachers of the Islamic science to women. His eldest daughter, Fatima Zahra, remembers that her father occasionally ordered the woman to withdraw from chores, household chores, and instead study works of classical history, poetry, and Arab grammar alongside their brothers. I hope I have given you a little overview of the Senegalese culture and way of life. There is a lot to say, but time constraint. Now let's talk about the exciting subject of mathematics in Sub-Saharan Africa. Beside the Egyptian civilization, a little is known about mathematics in Sub-Saharan Africa. Most histories of mathematics ignore the mathematics south of the Sahara or give the impression that this history doesn't exist or at least is not known or traceable. There were many universities before colonization. The Sankore University at Timbuktu in Mali, one of the world's oldest universities, was a home to many mathematicians who used their skills in astronomy and accounting. The university was well known during the reign of King Mansa Musa of Mali in the 14th century. The king used his wealth to attract the best scholars, establish libraries, educate hundreds of thousands of students. The libraries were full of manuscripts written in Hausa, Arabic, in the early 1200 AD. Malian hid some manuscripts in basements, attics, and underground when Europeans visited and began colonizing the Empire of Mali in the 1300s and between the 1300s and the 1800s. They were fearing destruction or theft from foreigners like it was done in Egypt. Many of the recovered manuscripts are mathematical and astronomical in nature. 700,000 scripts have been recovered and attest to the continuous knowledge of advanced mathematics and science in Africa way before European colonization. For example, papers recovered and given to Université de la Sorbonne en France to be analyzed revealed the equivalency of second-year calculus course content. In Senegal, we had the University of Pire, founded in 1601, That's where a lot of Senegalese imams and later resistance to the colonization attended and learned about Islam, astronomy, sociology, law, and other sciences. Those universities was destroyed during the colonization. In 2023, an asteroid was named after Senegalese astronomer Maram Kairé. He collaborated with NASA to catch the trajectory of an asteroid named after him as it was traveling over Senegal. He traveled to the UNESCO site named Stones of Senegambia and discovered that instead of being burial site as it was thought originally, it was indeed a way of tracking the sun and seasons.
Was there astronomy in Senegal before Islam? Maram would like to know. Clues can be found along a vast stretch of the river Gambia, where more than 1,000 stone circles have been constructed. They were built over thousands of years, right up until the 16th century. Many human remains and artifacts have been excavated at the sites. Scientific research has mainly focused on the burial practices and rituals of the builders. That is about to change. Maram is joined by archaeologist Aimé Cantoussin and planetary scientist Mark Bowie, who was also curious about humanity's ancient connections to astronomy. They will look for evidence of astronomical alignments at the sites. They will begin their survey at Singayen, the largest stone circle site. Neither the local people nor visiting archaeologists know who built these circles.
There is no connection between the people who build this kind of sites and the people who are living here right now. It's just like they build this kind of site, use them, and they just disappear.
There is a solitary stone that catches my attention. I think it's important because there are other stones nearby that may align with it.
You were saying this has a special orientation.
Yeah.
And I'm measuring this angle here to the second stone,
Yeah.
which according to my calculation is where the sun sets at the beginning of the summer at the solstice.
Yeah.
So when I look this direction, I confirm the angle 124 degrees to that rock is where the sun would rise at the beginning of winter. So when I look this direction, this angle is very, very close to the equinox, or the beginning of spring and fall.
The people who placed these stones would have observed how the locations of sunrise and sunset varied over the year. When the sun reached its northernmost point, it was the longest day, the summer solstice. At its southernmost point, the shortest day, the winter solstice. And when the sun rose directly east, the days and nights were equal in length, equinoxes. By aligning stones to these points, the builders would have been able to track the seasons.
Okay. That same Mariam Carey, he visited the holy city of Touba. There is a sundial at the big mosque of Touba. It took 33 years of collecting data to build the sundial by one of the imams. The sundial gives the exact prayer time for the location of the mosque.
Prayer is at the heart of Islam.
The type of Islam practiced in Senegal is Sufism. Maram belongs to the Murid Sufi Brotherhood, which is centered in his ancestral home, the holy city of Touba.
I'm drawn here today by a very unusual invitation. A family of Muslim scholars would like to demonstrate their astronomical practices to me.
Maram is about to discover something that will profoundly change the way he perceives astronomy in his country. An enclave of scientists who strive to perfect the measurement of time in the service of Islam.
Wow. Wow. When you are interested in astronomy, you will become passionate about the universe. You will become a fan of observing what happens in space.
I am here to learn about the work of Sheikh Mbake Busso, a highly respected astronomer who lived around the turn of the 20th century. The Busso family wished to show me a sundial which they have built in the courtyard of their mosque. It's based on one of Sheikh Mbake Busso's designs. They still use it every day to find the exact prayer times here in Touba.
Because the official time on a watch is not accurate enough for their needs. Official time is tied to the world's 24 time zones and is uniform across a region, sometimes even an entire country. But there's another type of time, true solar time, which is tied to the sun's position in the sky at a specific location. Even traveling a short distance east or west, there's a time difference. Only true solar time gives Muslims the accuracy they need to pray on time wherever they are. The best way to find true solar time is to measure the sun's shadow as it changes throughout the day. Many of us have now lost the connection between time and what happens in the sky, but not the Busso family.
They are not just trying to use the time like we use it in modern astronomy, but they need for a precise, accurate local time based on the position of the sun. All the life of the Muslim are depending on this kind of information for doing things at the right moment.
Besides being well-versed in astronomy, Senegalese and African in general are human basic calculators. Math is a part of everyday life. Math is a verb. Math is used in trading, in playing, in designing arts and crafts, houses, etc. My grandmother, who was illiterate, could add, subtract, multiply, divide, perform ratios and proportions so fast that I was always in awe of her. Of course, it was always about money or business. She had a group of friends, and every month, they contributed money into a pot and performed a draw. That system of large-scale money pooling for mutual benefits is called tontine in Senegal and Benin. It is called susu in Ghana and called isusu in Nigeria. The winner would use that money for a small commerce or buy something important. They would repeat the draw until everybody had won. I can tell you that my grandmother, who never worked a single day in her life, had more gold jewelry, more expensive material than my mother, who worked for 30 years. That implicitly shows that my grandfather was taking good care of her. Because of the history of trading goods, it is understandable that people were adept at arithmetic calculations. Thomas Fuller, known as the Virginian calculator and taken from Africa at the age of 14 in 1724, was famous because of his extraordinary arithmetic skills. Let's take a look at the numeration system of Senegal and Nigeria. In Senegal, the base is 10 and the sub-base of 5. After 5, you add 1 through 4 to get to 6 through 9. For example, 9 is 5 and 4. 26 is 2 10s and 5 and 1. And 75 is 7 10s and 5. In Nigeria, the base is 20. I'm fascinated with this base. For every 10, you add digits 1 through 4, but then you subtract 4 digits 5 through 9. For example, 14 is 10 and 4. 17, you take 3 from 20. 75, you take 5 from 4 20s. Does it make sense? Okay, then I'm gonna test you. Let's do a quiz. I need 3 table volunteers. Come on, people, 3 people. Then I'll pick a table. This table, the second table, you guys are going to figure out how to say 45 in the base of 20. 45. 45, they have to say what 45 is over there.
Table.
That table, that table. Two 20s and a 5? Great.
Yeah. 2 20s and 5.
Yes, great job. Good job. Okay. Go to Annie's table. Annie's a nice lady smiling. How would you say 52 in the base of 20?
Would it be 3 20s minus 8?
3 20s minus 6? Minus 8.
No.
No.
2 20s.
That's what they said.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Now go to the last table at the end. Last table. Over there at the end. Okay. Last table, how do you say 108 in the base of 20? I couldn't hear you.
5 20s and 8.
Remember, you cannot add 8. You can add 1 through 4.
So 2 less than 10.
Say it again.
5 20s and 2 less than 10.
Yes. Good job. Well, he's a mathematician. Okay, oops. Did you figure out? Yeah, then 2, yeah. Thank you, Mustafa.
Yeah.
All right. So this shows that these people were very, very well versed in addition, subtraction, multiplication, and order of operations. Africa is home to the world's earliest use of measuring and calculation. Thousands of years ago, Africans were using numerals, algebra, and geometry in daily life. Claudia Zaslavsky, author of Africa Counts and a pioneer in the history of mathematics south of the Sahara, has presented an overview of the literature on mathematics in the history of sub-Saharan Africa. Topics such as counting, number symbolism, numbers and money, weights and measures, mathematical games, magic squares, graphs, and geometric forms are discussed in her book and provide a preliminary survey of a vast field weighting investigation. Her study was based on what she calls the socio-mathematics of Africa, the applications of mathematics in the lives of African people, and conversely, the influence that African institutions had upon the evolution of mathematics. During her research, she discovered a wealth of mathematical ideas and concepts. She stated in her article, Africa Counts and Ethno-Mathematics, I have never realized the extent to which every society develops its own particular mathematics. In his article on mathematics in the history of sub-Saharan Africa, Paul Gerdes from the Instituto Superior Pedagógico in Maputo, Mozambique, says, The concept of socio-mathematics may be considered a forerunner of the concept of ethno-mathematics, which is the study of the relationship between culture and mathematics. It is ethno-mathematics as a discipline that studies mathematics and mathematical education as embedded in their cultural context, the development of different forms of mathematical thinking which are proper to cultural groups like ethnic, professional, and age group. Since the publication of Zaslavsky's book, numerous scholars in Africa and abroad have been interested in the mathematical heritage of Africa south of the Sahara. One of the most comprehensive articles about contribution of Africa south of the Sahara is Paul Gerde's article. Here are some artifacts that indicate early numeration system and measurement in sub-Saharan Africa. I'm going to start with the Ishango bone. The Ishango bone, discovered at the fishing site of Ishango on Lake Edward in the Democratic Republic of Congo, originally dated 9,6500 BC in 1991, is presented by Zaslavsky as the early evidence of proto-mathematical activity in Africa. Zaslavsky described it as a bone tool, handle having notches arranged in definite patterns and a bit of quartz fixed in a narrow cavity in its head. The discoverer of the artifact, Dr. Jean de Hanslien, suggested that the patterns of notches on the bone as an arithmetic game of some sort devised by people who had a number system based on 10, as well as knowledge of duplication and prime numbers. But Alexander Marshak, who later re-evaluated the dating of the bone to be from about 8,000 BC to 20,000 BC, examined the bone under a microscope and had different opinion. He explained the bone as early lunar phase. Zaslavsky then raised the question, who but a woman, keeping track of her cycles, would need a lunar calendar? And states that women were undoubtedly the first mathematicians. Yes. The second artifact, which is the oldest mathematical artifact, is the Limbombo's bone. Well, a lot of bees. Bogoshi, Ndao, and Webb, authors of the article, The Oldest Mathematical Artifact, describe a small piece of the fibula of a baboon marked with 29 clearly defined notches, which rank as the oldest mathematical artifact known. It was discovered in the early 17th in the Limbombo Mountains between South Africa and Swaziland. The bone has been dated to approximately 35,000 BC, and the author notes that the bone resembles calendar sticks that are still used today by Bushman clans in Namibia. Okay. Just like number 45, I'm going to talk about art and symmetry. Njoke, University of Yaoundé, Cameroon, says, pure mathematics is the art of creating and imagining. In this sense, black art is mathematics. There are 24 different types of patterns which can be used to cover a plane surface, the so-called 24 plane groups due to Fedorov. 7 of those 24 are translation in one direction and are called strip patterns. The remaining 17, called plane patterns, admit translations in more than one direction, as well as rotation of 360, 180, 120, 90, or 60 degrees. It is well known that all 24 plane patterns occur in Islamic art. In chapter 14 of Zaslavsky's, Dr. D.W. Crow discovered that those patterns occur everywhere in African art. He found them in the dyed cloth of the Ashanti Adinkira or Mali Bokolanfini, in the carved calabashes, wood carvings of all kinds, as painted or mud sculpture house decorations, in beadwork, woven mats, and so on. I'll show you 2 examples here. In Congo, the Bakuba art. The Bakuba are an ethnic group living between the Keja and Sankuku rivers in the Congo. They have an extensive oral tradition describing a royal line of 124 kings. Typical Bakuba designs shown in these 2 cups admit at least 12 patterns. The left design admits rotations by 180 degrees, as well as glide reflections, meaning translations followed by a reflection of 180 degrees. The right design admits reflections of 180 degrees, no translations here. The second example is the Yoruba attire cloth. The Yoruba attire cloth consists of several squares, each having its own pattern, and many of the 24 possible plain designs can be found. The cloth is made by starching a pattern onto a white cloth, then dyeing the cloth blue before rinsing out the starch. The starch portion remains as a white design against a blue background. You can see that the first two you just see translation, and then the last one you have translation and rotations. Now let's visit architecture and African fractals, just like my friend Teresa. Okay, let's talk about architecture first. Architecture in ancient Africa was determined by the climate conditions, natural resources, and sedentary or nomadic habits of its people. When we think of architecture, the Great Pyramids of Egypt first come to mind. However, there are smaller pyramids in Sudan dating 300 BC to AD 350. More than 200 pyramids with height ranging from 20 to 90 feet were built 200 years after the pyramids of Giza. They represent temples and tombs honoring gods, kings, queens, and nobles. Because of the civil unrest in Sudan, few travelers have seen these relics. The huts of Africa. Many architectural designs in Africa south of the Sahara look like cylinders with either a conical roof or a domed roof called huts, with very nice designs depending on the location and the culture. In 2008, Dr. Lamaro Scholember, a psychology lecturer and researcher at Mbarara University of Science and Technology in Uganda, published an article titled, "Why the Africans Live in Huts." She argued that while there is not much architectural fossil evidence, there is reason to believe that the architectural choices made by Africans are neither accidental nor simplistic. She says, many critics of Africa claim that Africans can boast no great culture south of Egypt. By that, they often mean that there is no architectural evidence of greatness south of the pyramid. They forget that the huts they so despise were inspired by pyramids, hence the peaked roof. It is very hot during the afternoons in Africa. The hut remains cool and is a welcoming resting place. At night, when temperature falls, the hut retains its daytime temperature, keeping the inhabitants warm. It's a free air conditioning and heating system. Architect Saddam Kakande explained, there has been a reemergence of the hut stems from the increasing temperature in Africa due to global warming. To attract clients, hotel and luxury pubs have adopted a grass-thatched style for their cottages and bars. Huts are very comfortable. Clay and grass are used to build the huts because they are good insulators, but they are porous and allow a free flow of air. The pyramids of Egypt are no doubt one of the greatest architectural wonders. However, there are other architectural wonders south of the Sahara. The first one is the Great Zimbabwe ruins. The ruins of the Great Zimbabwe were designated a United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization World Heritage Site in 1986. They are the most impressive ancient structure in sub-Saharan Africa. European colonists thought the city was too sophisticated to have been built by Africans, and instead thought it had been built by Phoenicians or other non-African people. However, despite the damage done by these colonial looters, today the legacy of the Great Zimbabwe lives on as one of the largest and most culturally important archaeological sites of its kind in Africa. Now let's talk about African fractals. There are more complex designs that involve the applications and conscious or unconscious knowledge of fractals. Dr. Ron Iglash is widely known for his work in the field of ethnomathematics, which aim to study the diverse relationships between mathematics and culture. He completed a Fulbright Senior Research Fellowship at the University of Dakar, Senegal, known as Université Cheikh Anta Diop, which helped him complete his research for his book, African Fractals. modern computing, and indigenous design. Dr. Iglash states, fractals are not entirely new inventions, for African settlement architecture is filled with remarkable examples of fractal structure. Fractals are characterized by the repetition of similar patterns at ever-diminishing scales. Traditional African settlements typically show this self-similar characteristic: circular circles of circular dwellings, rectangular walls enclosing ever smaller rectangles, and streets in which broad avenues branch down to tiny footpaths with striking geometric repetition. The fractal structure is easily identified when we compare aerial views of these African villages and cities with corresponding simulations. The first example is the Great Wall of Benin. Considered one of the greatest wonders of the world, the walls were built of a ditch and dike structures. The ditch was dug to form inner moat, and excavated earth from this was used to construct external ramparts that are 16,000 kilometers long, from 800 AD to about 1460 AD. Its construction method predates the use of modern earth-moving equipment or technology. The Guinness Book of World Records 1974 describes the walls of Benin as the world's second largest man-made structure after China's Great Wall. Dr. Iglash has discussed the plan layout of the city using fractals as the basis, not only in the city itself and the villages, but even in the rooms of the houses. He commented that when Europeans first came to Africa, they considered the architecture very disorganized and thus primitive. It never occurred to them that the Africans might have been using a form of mathematics that they hadn't even yet discovered. Sadly, the walls were destroyed by the British in 1897. The second example is the Palace of Logone-Birni in Cameroon. The architecture of the Palace of Logone-Birni, built by the Kotoko, makes use of the same pattern at several different scales. Dr. Iglash describes the palace as a rectangular spiral. Each time you enter a smaller scale, you are required to behave more politely. By the time you arrive at the throne, you are shoeless and speaking with a very cultured formality. Thus, the fractal scaling of the Kotoko architecture is not simply the result of unconscious social dynamics. It is a subject of abstract representation and even a practical technique applied to social ranking. The Baila settlement in southern Zambia has the same shape as the whole structure. It is a ring of rings. Dr. Iglash states that the settlement has a front-to-back social distinction. The entrance is low status, and the back end is high status. At the settlement entrance, there are no family enclosures at all for the first 20 yards or so, but the further back you go, the larger the family enclosures become. The village of Labazanga in Mali shows circular swirls of circular houses without any focus. But comparing this to the fractal image in the picture to the right, we see that a lack of central focus does not mean a lack of self-similarity. It is important to remember that while symmetry in Euclidean geometry means similarity within one scale, fractal geometry is based on symmetry between different scales. Even these decentralized swirls of circular buildings show a scaling symmetry, and indeed, spectral density measures of the Lemanga image show the characteristic power law scaling of fractals. And I'll finish here with a traditional settlement in northeast Senegal. Dr. Iglash also discovered that fractal design were also in the designs of streets. The design of the village settlement in northeast Senegal is typically not circular. Like the bronchial passages that oxygenate the round alveoli of the lungs, the routes that nourish circular settlements often take a branching form. In his book, Dr. Iglash has shown that African fractals are not simply due to unconscious activity. He looked at examples where there are conscious but implicit designs. followed by examples in which Africans have devised explicit rules for generating these patterns. Oral tradition was the main way of transmitting knowledge in ancient sub-Saharan Africa. Indeed, artisans, blacksmiths, griots, traditional doctors, astronomers, accountants, all passed down their knowledge to their child or grandchild to continue the traditional customs. The slave trade deprived Africa of leading bearers of knowledge like Thomas Fuller, the Virginian calculator, and so many more. As a result, the development of the existing mathematical tradition had been distracted. However, America gained bearers of those traditional knowledge, and their descendants became great Black mathematicians and artists, among other things.
Melanated, educated, you motivated generations to love mathematics. Melanated, educated, you motivated generations to love mathematics. Benjamin Banneker, what did he do? He taught himself astronomy and mathematics, and he also wrote almanacs. Mary Jackson, what did she do? She was a teacher for years, then became NASA's first Black woman engineer. Katherine Johnson, what did she do? Calculated how to get a person into outer space and how to get them back safe. Albert Koch, what did he do? He was a professor at Howard University, the first Black man to get a math Ph.D. Melanated, educated, you motivated generations to love mathematics. 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 David Blackwell, what did he do? Got his Ph.D. at 22, first Black man in the National Academy of Sciences. Annie Easley, what did she do? She created the software for the Centaur project that propels rockets. Evelyn Granville, what did she do? Program computers for IBM, taught at universities, helped Black women get degrees. Emory Brown, what did he do? He's a statistician, the first Black to get elected to all 3 national academies. These mathematicians led the way, role models for kids today and teachers, so let's follow in the footsteps of great examples. They made history doing math. It's your time to be great. Put your mind to it, give it to all. I know you got what it takes. Melanated, educated, you motivated generations to love mathematics. 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 You can be just like them. As a matter of fact, be better. Weather the storm when school gets hard. Follow the leaders that set the bar. They had a dream, never gave up. Worked hard until it came true. To make a change, it's on you. They changed the world, you can too. Melanated, educated, you motivated generations to love mathematics. Melanated, educated, you motivated generations to love mathematics. Melanated, educated, you motivated generations to love mathematics. Melanated, educated, you motivated generations to love mathematics.
It is imperative that our students know about the rich history of Sub-Saharan Africa, as well as the existence of many African American mathematicians and scientists. We need to enlarge their horizon by supporting global education programs and supporting study abroad programs in Africa. A Senegalese proverb says, "So xamul fi nga jëm, na nga dem fi nga jóge," meaning the future emerges from the past. You must revisit your history, your values, to know who you are and where you are coming from. Knowing who you are and where you're coming from leads to knowing where you are going, to self-respect, self-appreciation, and self-worth. I would like to thank you all, my global village. An African proverb says, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, I have been privileged to have been raised by 2 villages from 2 continents. If I'm the 48th Underwood recipient today, it is because of that global village that instilled in me the values of self-respect, honor, dignity, humility, and compassion. I want to especially thank my parents, Momar and Nafisatu, my adoptive parents and friends, Stephanie, Ellen, and Lawrence, Dr. John Wright, Rosalind, Judy, and Steve, my husband and children, Malik, Pamor, and Mustafa, the members of my mathematics department, Sharon, Pat, Christine, Mrs. G, Teresa, Rick Armstrong, John, Brian, Joe, Rita, Diane, Leslie, Sharon Ray, Ruth McGowan, Chip Day, my new dean, Tom McGovern, my former interim dean, Paul Higdon, my FV president, Dr. Perkins, the Underwood committee, Sharon, Larenda, and Howard. I would like to give special thanks to those behind the scenes, Mary, Aaron, T. Williamson, Karen, Stephanie, Shintana, Sharia, Edward, my FV people, faculty and staff. I dedicate this award to each one of you. Jërëjëf. Thank you. Announcement. Okay. Don't forget that lunch is right there. And on your way out, please take a gift. It's coming from Senegal that my mom brought. So each one of you, please take a gift on your way out. Thank you.